Upcoming season?
Oh, just, you know, I thought we did a nice job with who we brought in last year. Some really quality kids. And they just kept coming, and it was, it was a year that I feel like we filled some weight classes where we were struggling a little bit with depth, and I think we kind of cured that up to some point. And so anytime you go into your season and you feel pretty good about, you have two good athletes at each weight, maybe three, it puts you in a good position, of just feeling comfortable about if during the year when we get dinged up a little bit, we got good people stepping in.
With the incoming class, with how many of you guys started and having returning from a year ago, is there anyone in this freshman class you think could contend for a possible start?
Well, I think you look at a couple weights. 141, there's a possibility with Carter Young. We'll see how that goes. I think that you got senior Dustin Hone and the possibility of G. Feller. 49, you have Victor Voinovich, that's from Ohio. So, I would think that would be the only two right now, and they're still probably a little ways off. But I feel real good about those two and where they're at right now. I do feel good about that. And I think that those are going to be key weights for us, 40, 41, 49. Those are weight classes that, we should be good in. We just should be good at 41, 49.
Injuries were, speaking of Dusty, injuries to him. Obviously, a couple guys went into NCAAs with some injuries as well. How are they looking health-wise right now?
Well, last year at this time we had a couple of major injuries. Cade Brock, the only one we have one injury right now that we need to give it some time with Anthony Montalvo. See how he goes, but. I think AJ has come back off of his knee injury, and he's been in the room. He's been working out. He's been lifting. He's been going through our workouts, and so it's been nice to see him come along with improve from where he was at about 3 months ago, and he's going to need everything he's got.
Have you seen Wyatt coming back after that crazy into his year last year, not being in, then going on to be All-American, and then going under the scope?
Yeah.
How has he, I guess, responded from such a
well?
roller coaster
He's
year?
a good kid. Remember, he's had two major injuries to the same knee, but I think he looks pretty good in the room. I think he's bounced back quickly. He's strong right now, he's going to need to stay focused on, not giving up his legs as much, protect his body a little bit more. He's kind of a little bit of a kamikaze when it comes to letting guys in on the legs and doing the splits and turning the knees down and doing some things that you need to be a little careful with this season and try to stay healthy as long as you can, if not the whole season. But he's bounced back quickly, he's training well, and he looks good in the room.
Do you anticipate, with COVID giving you guys an extra year, do you anticipate the overall level of college wrestling to be up this year?
Yeah, it's just like everything. I think we've seen it a little bit. Other sports, I think it's probably it's not going to help us as much as it's going to help other programs. So we had, of course, Dakota Gear back for another year. And some programs got up to 3 and 4 guys back, So for that reason, is it going to be more competitive? Absolutely. When you get into 6-year guys, if they're serious, it's going to be tougher. I think it's going to be tougher in every sport, So, the thing about it is it's going to be real important that we prepare ourselves for a lot more battles this year. I think just in general, it's going to be a tougher season than we've ever had.
Do you guys plan on going to any open tournaments this year?
You know, we have some that we're looking at, and the first one being over in Little Rock, Arkansas, the first weekend in November. But I don't think we'll send the starting team. We won't send the starting team. Our first competition will likely be Stanford at Stanford.
You mentioned 6 years guys, if they're serious about it. Obviously, you got one in room, and he was a guy that when I talked with him, he said in the summer it was kind of back and forth. He didn't know if he was staying or going, and he went back and forth multiple times. How have you seen him? How serious is he taking it so far, being back in there?
Oh, this is an important year for him, right? I mean, I think he recognized what he wants to do maybe in the future. It's an important year for him. So he recognizes that this is an opportunity to build himself up, to give him an opportunity to be looked at across the country if he wants to go into coaching. So, you know, he's a serious guy, always has been, has always had an outstanding work ethic. And I think the nice thing is he's got a lot of nice workout partners that maybe he didn't have so much of last year.
You mentioned Stanford. This time a year ago, they weren't going to have a program this year. How huge is that for college wrestling and important for you guys to get out there to
yeah, remember it's huge for 13 programs. I think it was 11 to 13 programs. I mean, I think wrestling was a big part of that and led the way. You know, people do silly things. That's all I can say. You know, it's nice to see what happened. You know, and so great team, good team. Had a national champion returning on the team. They got 4 or 5 weights that are really good. It's going to be a good dual meet. You know, you just matchup wise, it looks like it's very competitive, and got a new coach, one of the best coaches in the country, and Rob Cole. What he did at Cornell and built that program up, and now taking over Stanford. He's definitely, there's not a question, one of the better coaches in America.
And playing or wrestling in the football stadium. You guys have done it with Iowa. What do you recall from that trip, and what kind of your expectations for this one?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be in the football stadium. I mean, they said that that's a possibility, but I think it might, you know, it may end up in their field house. But I think it's just a matter of, you know, having a quality team, knowing that in the future, you know, they've been good the last several years, but knowing in the future with Rob Cole, going to be a team that we're going to probably likely want on our schedule pretty consistently.
Well, how big is that for recruiting, taking a trip out there? Because obviously you got a guy from California on the roster, and it seems like wrestling's starting to pick up there, just like kind of in Texas.
Well, California's always been good. It's deep, and a lot of kids, a lot of wrestlers out there. They wrestle in high school, and you know, and you look up around Oklahoma State wrestling, and you're gonna identify with a lot of kids that have wrestled, or a lot of athletes that have wrestled for Oklahoma State from California. You know, look up here, you can see Eric Guerrero from California. You know, there's probably a few others, but Chris Pendleton, and you know, you look at some of the guys that we've had in the past. California's always a hotbed for us to recruit out of. It's got to be the right kids, the right weights.
AJ is going to enter the year with a lot of lofty expectations. How have you kind of seen him respond to, you mentioned, you know, obviously coming off injury?
Well, I think the more he gets focused on his wrestling and the things that's really important, I think he's going to have a fine year, you know. I think it's real important for him to just get focused on, you know, wrestling, school wrestling, making sure that you identify that everything else is not that important, right? And so he's been doing a nice job since he's returned as far as his work commitment in the room and in the weight room.
So speaking of that, NIL obviously is a big thing. How has that been for your guys? Because it seems like while people think football immediately, around here wrestling is pretty significant for people around here.
Well, it's NLI, I guess. Yeah, I mean, he's been. We've had several guys with opportunities, and you know, I'm glad that they do get opportunities, but there does come a time that you got to set that aside and move forward. We are a higher education institution. It's schools first. You know, I mean, you got to go to class, you got to go study, you got to take care of your grades, and then your athletics is definitely right behind that. You know, so there's not a lot of time. You know, I mean, and if you spend too much time at it, you're going to find out you might be on the bottom end of things, and you may not be that important after a while. You know, winning's what makes you be noticed. So we always got to remember that.
With Harris getting the start the past couple seasons and Luke moving up to heavyweight, I was just interested on your take on the battle of the heavyweights this season.
Well, it's nice to have, right? I mean, you know, we're going to be ranking in a week and a half next weekend, and so the nice thing about wrestling is two guys get to wrestle and get to show us who's going to start. You know, I don't have to pick anyone. It's the results of a match. So, you know, it's not a judgment of who's better at this position or this position. It's, hey, who's winning the ranking match? That's who's going to wrestle most of the time. So, for us, it's a nice opportunity that we have. We also have Connor Doucette, who's a heavyweight, is good. But I do believe that Austin Harris had a nice year last year, finished strong at NCAA championships, although it wasn't an All-American, but finished strong and ought to have a level of confidence going into the season. But Luke Surber, as we've seen, has put on some weight, put on some size, and looks good, exciting.
At the other end of the lineup, is there still a battle there at 125?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so, you know, I think Reese Woodcraft and Trevor Mastro Giovanni both are preparing for the season, you know, so, you know, I think as you saw Mastro Giovanni last year at the end of the season, you'd seen a real level of development that took place as a true freshman who wrestled as a true freshman. I really was encouraged by his efforts towards the end of the year. And if he can start off there, he'll be real tough to beat. But it's a full season, and opportunities will be given throughout the season.
I got this question on my radio show today, wanting to ask you, do you foresee a time, and how soon maybe, if you're in your mind, that women's wrestling will be on campus?
Yeah, well, it's definitely something we visited with, and had continued conversations about it. You know, I kind of leave that to our administration, you know, when that decision needs to be made, or if it's going to be made. But I feel good about it, you know. I think that you need some things in place, you know. There's certain things that need to be in place before that exists, and I think that we're working towards that. So, you know, I'd be out of place saying any more than that. But I feel good about it, Robert. I feel real good about it.
How much does your experience, having coached the women's national team some and working with them, give you a good background on that sport and women in your sport?
Well, I think, you know, I spent a little bit of time, you know, with some age group kids that were 15 and 16. And I think the one thing I learned by it, by just being around them, is very serious. They love their sport. You know, they love wrestling as much as the men love wrestling, you know, and they take it very serious. A lot of them have backgrounds of family that wrestled, which is similar. And so, you know, when you look at the growth and what's happened, and we've watched a lot of states start official high school wrestling, you know. I think it's up to 30 plus states. And of course, we're at, as of last week, we were at 104 college institutions that wrestle. And that's, of course, that's NCAA, NAIA, and junior college. You know, I think when Iowa announced not long ago, about 3 weeks ago, they were the 100th team, and since then there's 104. So you see how fast this is happening in the action, and it's exciting to watch. Really is. I mean, it's something that you know, it's good to hear things like women's wrestling in high school is the fastest growing sport. That's a good thing to hear, you know. There's definitely a place for women wrestlers in college. I can tell you that.